Hello, Knights, and welcome to our next lesson in Algebra, Equations and Inequalities. Today we are going to be talking about the differences between them. So, what is the difference between equations and inequalities? How do they represent different things? So we have three little scenarios here, three different situations. The first one says, to be able to ride the roller coaster, you must be exactly 50 inches tall. Okay, exactly 50. The second one says, to be able to ride the roller coaster, you must be over 50 inches tall. So over 50 inches tall. And the last one says, to be able to ride the roller coaster, you must be 50 inches or taller. So I want us to sit here and think for a second. What do we notice about these three scenarios? How are they similar? What do we notice about them? Well, what I notice is each of them uses the number 50, right? So what do we notice? They all use 50. But are they all exactly the same? One says exactly 50, one says over 50, and one says 50 inches or taller. So they're not all exactly the same. They all use 50, but they do it differently. So each of these situations uses 50, but they use them differently. And we're going to go into that in a little bit more detail in a second. First, we want to just read our key point number 1. While equations and inequalities may look similar, they represent very different real-world solutions and situations. So they may sound like they're kind of the same thing, but they're actually going to be very different. Now let's take a look at how they are different. Problem number 1 says solution versus solution sets. Over here to the side, you may have noticed I drew out the symbols and the kinds of dots we use because we're going to do some graphing. So situation 1 said it's exactly 50. That means it can't be more, it can't be less. X is exactly 50. What does it mean? X is 50 and only 50. It can't be less than 50, it can't be more than 50, it is only 50. And the way that we draw that on the number line, you may remember we just draw a dot on 50. So we've plotted the point, and that just represents x equals 50. The next one says over 50, so that means x is greater than 50. So what does it mean? X is greater than 50. And the way that we plot this, we go back and we look at our chart. If x is greater than 50, greater than uses an open dot. So I'm going to do an open dot on 50. And then it says x is greater. So I ask myself, which side is the number line getting bigger on? The left side is less. The right side is greater. So I would shade the right-hand side because that's where the numbers get bigger. Or I could draw an arrow this way. And the last one, 50 or taller. That means still you can be more than 50, but it's also okay if you're exactly 50. So x can be 50 or greater. So to graph this, I'm going to go back and look again. If it's greater than or equal to, my symbol should be a closed dot. So I'm going to put a dot on 50, fill it in. It says x can be greater. Which side of the number line does it get greater on? Well, same thing as before, it goes to the right. You could have also just done like a dot and an arrow this way. So these are pretty different because if this line said exactly 50, that means only people who are exactly 50 inches can ride the ride. That wouldn't make a lot of sense because most people are not 50 inches. If it says x is over 50, that means even if you are 50 inches tall, you can't ride it because you have to be over 50. And if it says 50 or taller, that means if you're 50 inches, then you're in luck, you get to write it. But also if you're 60 inches or 70 inches, you get to write it as well. All right, a check for understanding. Write an inequality that represents the following situation. In the United States, the legal voting age is 18 years and older. Go ahead and take a second, write down what you think this would be as an inequality, and we'll check it in a moment. The legal voting age is 18 years and older. All right, well, let's just go ahead and write this. X is the age. So in order to vote, you must be 18 or older. So it could be 18 is greater than X, but also if you're equal to 18, it's fine too. So that should be X is greater than or equal to 18. Because you can vote if you're 18, but you can also vote if you're older than 18. All right, key point number 2. An equation has one solution. How many solutions does an equation have? One. It has one answer. An inequality, however, has many solutions called a solution set. So basically, if it's an equation, it's got one number that works. If it's an inequality, it means it could be a lot of different numbers. And so that's why we usually graph them on a number line. So key point number 3, when graphing a solution set, there are two circles with two different meanings. When it's filled in, it means the number is included, okay? If it's filled in, the number is included. If it's not filled in, like on this guy, that means the number is not included. We learned about this already, so I'm going to keep on moving on. But just remember, the dark circle means it is included. It's not if it's not filled in, it's not included. And then, of course, the direction the shaded arrow tells us the direction shaded on the arrow tells you if the numbers get greater or smaller. So our next part, solving inequalities. Basically, this is going to work the exact same way as an equation, but with an inequality symbol. So you solve inequalities doing the same process as equations using our inverse operations. If you don't remember this, write this down. Addition and subtraction, these guys are inverses, right? You undo addition with subtraction. You undo subtraction with addition. Same thing with multiplying and dividing. These are your inverses. So our first part, 13 is less than x plus 11. How do I undo adding 11? By subtracting. So these two go away, and I am left with 13 minus 11 is 2. 2 is less than x. The biggest mistake that people do here, okay, the number one mistake that it will just kill me inside if I see you do this. Please, I do not want to die inside. Don't do this. People will say, okay, 2 is equal to x. That is not what that sign says. Please, 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 please do not do 2 equals x. It's going to kill me inside if I see you do that, and I don't want to die inside. Please, please, you keep the same symbol. You do not change it to an equal sign, okay? What do? You keep it the same symbol. You do not change it into an equal sign. I promise you, some people are going to do that, and it's just going to kill me inside. All right, so 2 is equal to x is wrong. It's just 2 is less than x. So now we're going to graph it. Here's 2. Since there's no line underneath it, I know that I need to put an open circle. So 2 is less than x. That means x can be anything that is bigger than 2, so I would shade this side, because that's where the numbers get bigger. And if I wanted to, I could fill this in. But I'm going to stop there. All right, question B, right here. 10 plus x is greater than or equal to 45. What is the opposite of adding 10? Well, the opposite of adding is subtracting. So you subtract 10 from both sides. 10 minus 10 gives me 0. That goes away. So I'm left with x. That's really sloppy. I'm going to redo it. 45 minus 10 gives me 35. 35 equals x. I hope the alarm just went off in your brain. I hope that it said, because it is not an equal sign. Remember, it's not an equal sign. I keep it the exact same. It should be x is greater than or equal to 35. Don't kill me inside. So 35, I'm going to put this here. If I remember from my chart, whenever it's greater than or equal to, it's a filled in circle. It says x is greater than these numbers, so x should be all the numbers that are to the right, because the numbers to the right are the ones that are bigger. All right, question C. For part B, is 50 a part of my solution set? So basically we're asking, if x equals 50, is it true? Well, let's see. If I put 50 in place for x, is 50 greater than or equal to 35? Yes, this one works, so it's true. Because 50 is greater. For question D, for part B, is 10 a part of your solution set? So if x equals 10, is it true? Let's try. 10 is greater than or equal to 35. By the way, if you're like, wait, where did this thing come from? This came from right here. Okay, I'm just using this inequality. So, is 10 greater than 35? No, so this one is false. It's not a solution because 10 is less. I'll give you another second to catch up. So this one was true up top, and the second one was false. They were not a solution on the second one. All right, question E. Which inequality is true when P is equal to 3? So just like if this were an equation, I'm going to set this up. Instead of P, I'm going to write 3 plus 15 is greater than 18. Now I combine. 3 plus 15 makes 18 is greater than 18. I have to ask myself, is 18 bigger than 18? No, that would be silly. 18 is actually equal to 18, so this one is wrong. Part C, we have 3 minus 10 is less than negative 16. 3 minus 10, well, if I start at 3 and I go backwards 10, I end up at negative 7 is less than negative 16. This is something that I noticed a lot of us kind of struggled with today. Would you rather owe a person $7 or $16? I would rather owe $7 because that means I don't have to pay them as much money, which means 17 is actually, greater. Even though it looks like it's bigger because 7, or even though it looks like it's smaller because 7 is less than 16, since it's a negative, it works the other way. So this one is also wrong. All right, question B, we have 3 plus 15 is greater than or equal to 18. So this is actually the exact same thing, but now it has the line. Because it has this little line here, that actually means now this one is true because 18, it's not greater than 18, but it is equal. And we can double check with this one just to make sure. 3 minus 10 is less than or equal to negative 16. Gives me negative 7, which is still false. So we should have gone with B. So just like with the equations, wherever I see P, I replaced it with the number 3, and I solved it, and I decided, is it true or is it false? And the only one that was true was letter P. Sorry, letter B. All right, this question over here, number 2, we're actually going to do this one in class, so you don't need to worry about completing this part of the page. Just make sure you have everything written down from the first 2 pages, because we will be checking for it and making sure that you completed it. So If you've gotten to this point and you've watched this video and you've paid close attention and you are ready and prepared to be successful tomorrow, then you may pause this video, have a wonderful evening, and we will see you tomorrow. If you are still confused, then I recommend watching this video a second time because it's going to get easier the more you watch it. But guess what? If you don't watch it and you don't pay attention, it doesn't get easier. Okay? It just stays hard. So, I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good evening. Later.